Welcome to News OK's Thunder Thursday Hangout. I'm Dave Morris. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about the NBA team right here in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Thunder, brought to you by our friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Hey, it's good and bad news, I guess. It's tax season. That could be bad news. It also could be good news if you got that tax refund coming in. It's a great time to buy a new or pre-owned car. Be sure to check out Wheeler Chevrolet. They are located at I-40 exit 101 in Hinton. We've all driven by that before. Again, I'm Dave Morris here on NewsOK.com. In the studio, we have Todd Frazier and Paige Dillard producing, and online, Eric Horn. We appreciate his help, and I appreciate his questions that he gave me helping to pre-produce this show. I'm joined now by the Oklahomans, Jenny Carlson, Barry Trammell, and DJ Anthony Slater. Jenny, how are you today? Look at that.
I don't feel nearly as good as I did before because I don't look like Anthony. Dang.
Nobody looks like Anthony right now. Anthony, explain the setup here.
Oh, I'm 13 floors up on top of Oklahoma City, in foggy Oklahoma City. Like you said, I got my DJ headphones in. I mean, we're spinning some tracks up here. I'm ready for some questions.
Beats by Dre right there. Hey, Barry, how are you today?
I'm good.
Well, you know who else was good was Coach Greg Popovich last night with the San Antonio Spurs. So the ESPN had that telecast. Apparently didn't have a sideline reporter. Jeff Van Gundy then after the third quarter hustled over, grabbed Coach Pop, stuck the mic in his face, and the awkwardness, hilariousness ensued from there. Let's roll the clip.
Back here with,
I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, well, hold on. Back here with Greg Popovich, up 20.
What's the question?
No, listen.
Is there a question?
You're making me nervous.
No,
you're making me nervous. But seriously, I've never been so nervous in my life, so I asked all the sideline reporters
right now.
No, all the sideline reporters what to do, how to approach you. They said explore your feelings at the end of the third quarter. So are you? Oh, I'm glad you're so happy. Thank you.
Well, I don't think any of us expected that response from Coach Popovich, an in-game hug. Barry, I'll lead off with you. What do you think about in-game interviews?
Depends on who's conducting them. If Doris Burke is doing them, they're fantastic. She's the greatest of all time at asking in-game questions.
Now, why do you say that? What makes her so good?
Because she watches the game and knows what's going on. Most of the time, you got somebody that's not watching the game, especially in football. It's worse in football, and you get stuff that's not happening at all. But with Doris, she asks you specific questions about what happened in the game, and sometimes you get an answer and sometimes you don't. But you always get a good question out of Doris. Seems
pretty obvious, don't you think, that the sideline reporter or any reporter at the game should be watching the game and asking a relevant question?
Oh, these two yahoos that cover the games with me, I got to tell them what's going on the court.
That's false.
Shots fired. Jenny, we'll throw it your way. What do you think about the in-game interviews?
Well, I'm not going to knock on AC Slater and or what is it? DJ AC Slater.
DJ
there
Slater.
We go. Yeah, not going to knock on him or our man Darnell. But, I'm generally not a fan of him because you don't get anything out of him. But if Jeff Van Gundy wants to start doing them all the time and exploring feelings with coaches, then we might be in for some good entertainment. That was great. A little humor. It goes a long way.
Kind of is what it is. You know, we all kind of cringe when reporters ask people, hey, you just lost your house. How do you feel about that? The whole feel question always makes you kind of cringe. So I'm sure Van Gundy threw that out there on purpose.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. And I tell you, the best part of it was when Van Gundy said that he'd ask other sideline reporters and they wanted him to explore his feelings, because that's about the last thing that Mr. former military man Greg Popovich wants to do with anybody, much less a member of the media.
Well, this leads me to the actual question that I brought up, because you guys are all veteran reporters at what you do. Who's the most intimidating person you've ever interviewed? Barry, I'll throw it back to you. What do you think? Who's the most intimidating person you've ever interviewed? And by the way, it looks like your fireside. Is this the case?
Who tries to be the most intimidating is Bobby Knight.
Was he?
He tries to intimidate everybody. He's successful on some. If you go in with a good attitude, he really doesn't intimidate you. I think sometimes some big-time athletes can try to intimidate you as well. Manny Ramirez tried it on me at the All-Star game in 1994, but I barely knew who Manny Ramirez was, so it didn't really affect me too much. But But people try that from time. Greg Popovich, in sort of a curmudgeon, charming way, he tries to intimidate those guys at every sideline interview. That was part of the shtick last night.
It certainly seems that way. I know Laker coach Phil Jackson always hated that, and kind of the same way, sort of talked down and then eventually would circle back. Jenny, what about you? Most intimidating person you've ever interviewed?
I was really thinking about it, and I'm not sure I have anybody that just springs to mind. I definitely think Popovich, in more recent times, sort of makes you ask really good questions. Any question he can answer yes or no, or can find a gaping hole in, he will drive right through it. So that really challenges you. But being somebody that's a little on the shorter side, anytime I talk to really tall athletes, it's always kind of interesting, or really big athletes. But I don't know if I've ever really been intimidated by anybody. You just there are some people that you have to be on top of your game with, otherwise you're not going to get any good answers. DJ
Slater, you freezing out there on the balcony?
It is cold up here, man. But to your question, I'm not obviously nearly as veteran a reporter as Jenny or Barry, but I have a Greg Popovich story to kind of circle back this question to. I think it was 2000. It was the Western Conference Finals where the Thunder beat the Spurs. I think it was like Game 4, and I think I was still a blogger for us, and I went down there to talk to him about James Anderson, who was a backup former OSU player. Nothing that mattered within the series. And he comes over to talk to me, J.A. Dondi from ESPN, and some San Antonio writers, and it's the first time I'd ever talked to Popovich or dealt with him. I had seen the stuff. So I guess you could say, I'm a little intimidated. I'm probably, maybe like 21 at the time. And I'm kind of going to wait to ask about Anderson because it doesn't matter within the series. And J.A. Dondi, who's well-respected ESPN guy, asked the first question, and you could tell Popovich did not want to be there. It was shoot-around of the day of Game 4. And he asked something about point guards, and Popovich goes, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to guard Kevin, Bleep, and Durant right now, and you're going to ask me about the historical significance of point guards? And he just looks at all of us, thanks as always, I'm out of here. Doesn't answer one question, just walks away. And it was the first time I met him. I said, I'm never asking that guy a question again.
Sometimes you just don't know what sort of response you're going to get from these guys. It's the Thunder Thursday Hangout today. It's sponsored by Wheeler Chevrolet, located down in Hinton. I mentioned Eric Horn. He's helping produce this on the online side of things. If you have a question for our esteemed colleagues here, including DJ Slater, go to newsok.com/live. You can enter your question, and Eric will help moderate that online, and I'll pass it along to these guys. Let's get into this a little bit more for the Thunder side of things. Darnell Mayberry wrote in his notes about KD, thoughts about KD defending number one scores in crunch time. Guys, is this the next step KD needs to take as we talk about, LeBron, best player in the league, Kevin Durant's probably number 2, and then a wide gap beyond that. Is this something that Durant needs to focus on, or perhaps does the Thunder need to shift somebody else over to that number one score in crunch time so that Durant can score? DJ Slater, your thoughts?
I'm with Darnell on the thought the other night. Gordon Hayward really lit him up, and there was an opportunity for him to just say, to do what LeBron does a lot of time, which, hey, that guy's going off. I can guard 1 through 4. I'll pick who I want to shut down, and I'll go shut him down. I don't know if Durant has the capabilities yet defensively to just go shut somebody down. But, he's being talked right now. There's a lot of people giving him hype as, he's about to supplant LeBron as the MVP of the league. So that would have been a very good opportunity for him to kind of show people. He talks about his defense being underrated. Go show people. Go shut Gordon Hayward down. But, he said after the game, I just do what Coach says. And, sometimes you got to, when you're the star of the league, star of the team, maybe go above what your coach says and says, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm about to go do it.
Barry, before we get to you, we're seeing some highlights there. Our friends at Thunder Insider tape every week here at the Pubco Studios. We appreciate them coming in, and we appreciate some of that footage, which can be found on newsok.com and, of course, at thunder.nba.com, and they'll have the pregame before tonight's game against Denver. Barry, your thoughts on KD at this point?
I would not, except maybe 1 or 2 possessions perhaps, very situationally, I would not ask Kevin Durant to take a bigger defensive responsibility as long as Russell Westbrook's out. If you'll notice, watch Durant tonight in Denver. The last several games, when Westbrook's out, Durant works much more on offense than he usually does. You know, remember the Durant of 2 or 3 years ago had very few weaknesses, but one of them, he would get lazy on offense. He would not move without the ball very much. He would stand and put his hand up and want just a lob pass. You don't see much of that anymore. Durant works his butt off on offense to shake free of defenders, to get over, to get around screens, to drive, do a lot of things. He's really working hard on offense. Everybody has to work hard on defense, but if you're guarding the best player, you got to work doubly hard. I think it's a bad idea. I would go with Tabo, Perry Jones, Andre Robertson, anybody, but I would not put that. I would not put that burden on Durant until Westbrook gets back.
Three guys that weren't in the game the other night for some reason as well when Hayward was going off. The three defenders you mentioned, which was also it was kind of mind-boggling about the whole thing. He was throwing Derek Fisher on him.
You know, one of the topics we're going to talk about today, the Thunder completed its first trade of the season. Ryan Gomes no longer with the Thunder. I mentioned you can submit your questions on newsok.com/live, and people are submitting some questions. But before we get to JJ Barea and Shumpert, guys, your thoughts on the Ryan Gomes trade. Jenny, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, I think in terms of impact on the current team, I'm not sure it's huge. I guess I could be proven wrong if they do something now that they've sort of opened up that roster spot and lost his or dumped his salary essentially along with the trade. But I think it's probably more of a potential impact down the road. I mean, Sam Presti, again, sort of just hoarding, you know, in bits and pieces, hoarding these draft night pieces. I mean, whether it's a draft pick here or there, an exception here or there, you know, bits of salary, just all these little things that he then cobbles together to make bigger deals down the line. I mean, it's it maybe doesn't look like much now, but down the road, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see it become something that we go, oh, hey, that was pretty genius by Sam Presti. But, you know, Gomes not playing much. It's not like some years past when a veteran who wasn't playing much was a big influence in the locker room. They've already got veteran guys in the locker room who are, you know, good in terms of that. So impact right now seems minimal to me, but down the line, who knows? Who knows what Sam Presti has planned for that exception that they got out of the deal?
Barry, your thoughts on the trade?
Well, I mean, I think Sam's just setting up in case he can make a deal. I don't think he did this to necessarily make a trade, but I do think he did this so that if a trade comes along, he's in position. So I think we'll have to wait and see. I think there are some trades that could work out. I think it's most likely that the Thunder remain status quo, but Sam just wants to be in position in case something good comes down the pike.
Well,
didn't Steven Jackson get let go the other day? I know his salary's probably too much, but he's the type of guy that when you talk about guarding LeBron, I've always thought somebody like him would be great. His numbers are too big probably, but
hey, Jackie O.
Man, if something like that pops open, you just never know what Sam might do.
Let me tell you what you do know. You know he's not going to sign Steven Jackson.
Yeah.
He's a lunatic.
Well,
and everywhere he goes, he's getting cut right now.
I was about to say, seems like Captain Jack gets released every season, right?
But he's perfect. He's perfect for the Thunder. Jackie O's right. But Sam Presti is not. He's not interested in starting a pirate ship.
Yeah, him and Bynum are on the way.
As a player, not as a person.
Maybe J.R. Smith.
Yeah. Hey, get that trio: J.R. Smith, Bynum, and Steven Jackson.
There's a threesome.
It's a rogues gallery. Anthony, one of our users on newsok.com, we have a comment from Free Drop who says, hey, why not trade for JJ Barea? He just read where he and Kevin Love are at odds of many, and Barea has always given us fits. Your thoughts?
I was just cut out. Did you just ask me?
Anthony, one of our users on newsok.com said, hey, why not trade for JJ Barea?
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't think many who's, you know, a playoff team, just because him and Love are kind of at odds. I don't see Minnesota just giving the Thunder JJ Barea, and for the Thunder to get somebody right now, it basically has to be a team that just kind of wants to give away about a $2 million guy, because they're looking to not break into, you know, take anyone out of their rotation. They just want to use this kind of maybe this $2.3 million exception that they've kind of with the Gomes trade, now have the flexibility to use. So I don't see a guy like Barea being available for just kind of a, hey, I know we're in the same conference, but here, take one of our backup guys. I don't see him being available.
Anthony, you mentioned Andrew Bynum a minute ago. One of our users, a comment from Josh says, he's asking that question, would the Thunder consider signing Bynum?
Well, the thing we just talked about earlier, I don't see him fitting into the Thunder culture just with, it's the same thing as a Steven Jackson. And also, from what I'm hearing, one of Bynum's biggest things that he's looking for right now is money.
He wants the money, you're right.
And the Thunder don't have that. They don't have guaranteed minutes. They don't have what Andrew Bynum's looking for. I really, really don't see him being a fit. So no, I don't see that, no.
It's the Thunder Thursday Hangout here on newsok.com. You can submit your questions at newsok.com/live. Eric Horn will help out with those questions and the moderations online. I'll pass them along to Barry Trammell, Jenny Carlson, and Anthony Slater. We have Todd Frazier and Paige Dillard in the control room helping out. This is sponsored by Wheeler Chevrolet. Jenny, you tweeted last night, you're at the OU game. Sam Presti and Clay Bennett were also at the OU Kansas game. So let's talk about Thunder draft. Who could fall to the Thunder in the draft from Kansas or possibly even OU?
It's a great question. It was a pretty heavy NBA crowd there last night. Obviously, with Kansas in town, some NBA caliber freshmen, a couple guys that are expected to be lottery-type picks when they go out. So you saw both Presti and Bennett there. You also saw Rich Cho, now the GM for Charlotte, as well as representatives from the Rockets, Cavaliers, and Pelicans, all teams that are looking for talent upgrades. Obviously, everybody is, but some teams that could definitely use some guys and will probably be in the lottery this year. But, I don't know if either of those Kansas freshmen will be around when the Thunder gets ready to draft this year, if they leave Kansas early. I think both those guys, with their athleticism and potential that they have, I think a lot of teams that are going to get lottery picks will probably be excited enough about what they see out of them to go ahead and take those guys before the Thunder would pick. But, Kansas, I tell you, if I'm Bill Self, I know this is a tangent away from the Thunder, but if I'm Bill Self, I look at the talent I've got on that team and say we should be playing better. They just need to have a fire lit under them, because athletically and talent-wise, they look like they've got it from about player number 1 to about player number 12 or 13. They are deep. So there are several guys on that team that I could see potentially being interesting to a team like the Thunder that's probably going to draft a little bit lower. I don't know if any of them will be fits ultimately, but they've got some athletic guys, some interesting guys. Cam Clark from OU seems like to me to be the guy right now from OU that could potentially be a draft pick. But Kansas was really intriguing. They had more depth of athleticism than I thought they had, and that's always interesting to NBA types.
Hey, Barry, could those guys, Clay and Sam, be looking at perhaps a trade that would boost them up higher in the draft to look at some of these guys?
Oh, they could be. I mean, I think they're just covering all their bases. Sam takes a lot of recruiting trips, a lot of scouting trips, goes all over the country. When 2 potential lottery picks are playing 20 miles south of the arena, no reason not to go. So I think it's unlikely that either one of those guys would fall to the Thunder. It's unlikely the Thunder would trade up for either one. But you might as well put your information in your backpack and save it for a rainy day. You never know when something happens. So I just think it's a chance for them to see. I'm sure they've seen them before, but a chance to see them conveniently. 2 of the more high-profile guys in this NCAA freshman class.
The Thunder is in Denver tonight. They take on the Nuggets. That game 9:30 p.m. That's right, 9:30 p.m. Tune into TNT to watch that game. Anthony Serge Ibaka will be back in the lineup tonight. Let's talk about his importance in the middle. Just as big as Westbrook, maybe, but your thoughts?
I don't think he's as big as Westbrook, but I think the other night we were kind of shown how important he is on the defensive end. I mean, Utah shot over 90% inside the paint, and I mean, usually the Thunder go up around 50%, which is one of the best numbers in the league. That shows you, I mean, that it's Ibaka not just blocking, 2-point-something shots a game. It's his affecting, the thought process of guards going into the rim. It's him altering shots even though he doesn't block it. he changes a lot on defense, and we saw that the other night. I mean, Utah shot 58%, and we're talking about one of the worst teams in the league offensively. So it's good to have him. It'll be good to have him back for the Thunder tonight. And I mean, it's not a serious thing. It was just a little flu that they sat out. So that's important to note too.
Barry, your thoughts on Ibaka, and I think Tabo's back tonight as well.
Well, I mean, I think when you look at what I didn't catch all your question, but I assume you're talking about Tabo and Ibaka being back. Here's why Ibaka is important, because the Thunder about once every 4 games decides they're not going to get in front of anybody, just let everybody run to the rim unencumbered. And when Ibaka's there, he swats or scares swats the ball away or scares the snot away from the penetrator. But without Ibaka there, I mean, they got problems. They're letting people letting the Utah Jazz drive to the hoop with nobody there to defend the rim. So my recommendation on playing Denver, which is a fabulous paint team with Ty Lawson and those guys, they penetrate as well as anybody in the league. They got to get in front of somebody tonight, or they're going to lose again.
Barry, it seems like I remember you saying, perhaps on the radio, if there was a trade for the Thunder, it might involve Tabo.
Well, Tabo's got the expiring contract, and his future may be. He may not be back anyway. If there is, Tabo is a way to get give somebody an expiring contract and get a good player in return. I think he's the best trade bait they have right now. I mean, they're not going to trade some of the cornerstones. So I think the most likely Thunder to be traded is Thabo Sefolosha. If you look at where Thabo is right now, is where Jeff Green was when he was traded. In the last few months of his contract, they traded James Harden before the season started on his last year on his deal. So Thunder has a track record. If you don't extend your contract, they generally trade you. Now, I don't know to what extent they've offered Thabo. I don't know how any of the negotiations have gone, but I do know that the Thunder has a track record of trading veterans whose contracts are about to expire.
It's the Thunder Thursday Hangout here on NewsOK.com, brought to you by our friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Anthony Slater, I'm going to come your way. Give us some analysis of the schedule that the Thunder's about to face. It's about to get a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I mean, they have nice little breaks between games, but I mean, you got a good look at some of the Western Conference elite coming up. You got a Spurs, Blazers back-to-back in a couple weeks. You're at Memphis and at Houston next week. So, I mean, these are some of the teams that they'll be facing, come deep in the playoffs. You get maybe a better look at, the matchups if Westbrook was to be back, and who knows, I mean, maybe a week or two. He could be maybe a week or two away, so we could get a surprise there. But, I mean, it's a tough stretch that kind of ends this month at Miami, which is the matchup everyone kind of wants to see.
You were looking at the Thunder's next 5 games there on the screen, and some good matchups coming up. I believe the Thunder are at home Saturday night.
Saturday. That's not a good matchup, though.
Maybe not a marquee matchup, but I believe next weekend against Golden State, and we know how entertaining that is and how on fire that team is right now. Jenny, your thoughts on what the Thunder perhaps needs to do as they get into more of the meat of the schedule?
Well, I mean, obviously you're going into, as Anthony said, a pretty tough stretch here without Russell Westbrook. I mean, even if he comes back a couple weeks early, I mean, I think at the earliest, I mean, we could all probably agree that that would be, I mean, that Miami game I think is on the 29th, would be almost 3 full weeks ahead of the All-Star break, which would be, significantly ahead of his return. So the chance of him being back before then seems pretty unlikely. So, I mean, this is going to be a tough stretch even if they had him. So the Thunder's really going to have to lock down. I think this is going to be a tough stretch mentally, physically. Defense is going to be key, and this team has really shown that they've had their struggles. When they're locked in, they're really good. When they're not, as we saw the other night, they can get pretty much annihilated by a so-so team in the Utah Jazz. So if they can defensively lock it in for longer stretches, I like their chances to, finish this stretch in pretty decent shape. But if they think that they can just wait until the fourth quarter, I think we're going to see them, have some deficits that aren't very pretty because Anthony mentioned those back-to-backs. They've got, I think, Golden State and somebody else. Golden State Houston is another back-to-back this month. So, if you think you can rest on the, on the Golden State Warriors for 2 quarters or so and find yourself in a position to win that game, I think it's going to be tough. So defense, in my mind, locking in is going to be really important for this team.
Hey, Barry, what's your thoughts on a loss like the one to Utah? Is it anything to panic about, or is it just, lost a game, there's, plenty of other games? Is it a matter of focus? Is it just, hey, those things sort of happen?
Oh, I think it's focus, and I think it's those things happen. It's not time to panic. I would panic. The time to panic in Oklahoma City is when Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant have career-ending injuries or leaving free agency. That's when we need to take to the streets and panic. Otherwise, everything's going to be fine. Just got to wait. The truth of this Thunder season is this: if they won 70 games, it was sort of beside the point. If they finished 4th in the West, it's sort of beside the point. This season is going to be determined by how they do in the playoffs. And yeah, you want to get home court advantage. And truth is, the year the Thunder had it, they didn't make the NBA Finals. The year they didn't have it, they did make the NBA Finals. So I'm not too worried about the home court advantage personally for the Thunder. I think they'll be all right either way. What much more important is just getting Westbrook healthy, getting him back. When they've got Westbrook in the lineup, they're the NBA's best team. So, no reason to panic, especially with Russell Westbrook sitting out.
Barry, let me ask you this question. And I watch a ton of NBA basketball. I grew up a huge basketball fan. You see these premier teams like the Thunder, just as we saw the Lakers, Celtics, Bulls back in the day. You could see these coaches used some of the regular season, especially the middle part of the regular season, to work on things. From a fan standpoint, when we're watching the game tonight against Denver or any other game, what might be some things we should look for that perhaps that's what Coach Brooks is doing, is actually working on some things, whether it's chemistry of a different lineup or various schemes?
Well, I think Perry Jones in the lineup, I think that's an example. I think Jenny was talking about the Thunder could use a guy off the bench who's a big wing defender, which I agree with. They've needed that for 2 or 3 years. Well, what if Perry Jones could actually become that to some degree? I think you're seeing Perry Jones play more, not because Scotty woke up and said, you know what, Perry Jones is going to help us beat Utah. But I think he woke up and said, you know what, if I play Perry Jones 10 minutes tonight and 10 minutes last Tuesday night and 10 minutes Saturday night, maybe he helps him move to becoming a better ball player. And if I need him for 2 minutes against Indiana or 2 minutes against Miami or 2 minutes against Golden State, he can give it to me. So that's an example, I think. You're seeing some of the younger guys get played in situations that's not really conducive to winning the game that night.
Well, and that's sort of Scott Brooks' track record, too. I mean, look back at Serge Ibaka. And Serge Ibaka's first game for the Thunder, I think he played 3 minutes. I mean, they finally thought, okay, let's give this guy a chance to see what he can do. And he took those couple minutes and he built on him and he built on him and, obviously has become what we see. So I think Scott Brooks is one that tends to sort of, little bites for these young guys as they go. I mean, obviously when you get pressed into duty like Reggie Jackson when Russell Westbrook's hurt, that's one thing. But when he has a chance to, sort of piecemeal their time and give them a chance to adjust, that's what he does. So, I've always felt like that this Thunder team was pointing towards the playoffs. And so to do that, sometimes you may take a lump or two, but, you think about it in terms, we sometimes talk about, what each NBA game equals if you equate it to the NFL. You think about a 16-game NFL schedule, 82-game NBA schedule. One game is essentially like a quarter or so of one NFL game. Do you get too worked up if your team plays bad for a single quarter in an NFL game? No. So, yeah, it's tough to see teams lose and not play well, but, wait and let these trends develop and see how things go. And if you're still, seeing no movement after 4 or 5 games, well, then maybe you start to get a little concerned. But there's no panic button. I haven't even gone looking for a panic button yet with the Thunder.
One of the cool things that we do on newsok.com on our Thunder page is something that Anthony Slater does. He calls it the film room, I believe, where he puts together a blog post and some YouTube clips of various key plays and moments of the game. Anthony, what are some of the things that you look for when you're dissecting a game?
Or just trends. I mean, like the last one I did was just Jeremy Lamb with Westbrook out, kind of becoming, showing different parts of his game. He had a career night in rebounding one game, then the next game he had a career night in assists, and I picked out certain plays that just showed that this guy's not just a scorer, and a shooter. And I mean, now on the subject of Lamb, I mean, I think he's one of the guys that, like they were talking about, that Scott Brooks keeps giving more minutes, and he's showing improvement each game, and that'll help them come playoff time.
Again, we're looking at some highlights there from Thunder Insider. We certainly appreciate their help with our Thunder Thursday Hangout here on NewsOK.com, sponsored by Wheeler Chevrolet. Guys, last question, and I'll give it to Brendan, who's been following along on NewsOK.com/live all day. Barry, we'll start with you. Who does the Thunder not want to face in the first round of the playoffs? Barry is either deep in thought or frozen right
now. You want me to go?
Anthony, we'll throw it your way. DJ Slater.
I don't think they'll face him because the Warriors are really hot.
Who does the Thunder want to avoid? I would say two teams.
Right. I hope he's going to say one of them, the Warriors. I was going to say the Warriors. I mean, they just got shooters that can light it up, and they can shoot you. They can shoot you out of games just by their just pure shooting ability. But they're really hot right now, so it doesn't look like that's a likely first-round matchup. But that's the team in the West that I just think athletically and offensively, explosive-wise, can kind of match up with the Thunder.
Barry, back to you while we have a good connection. And by good, I mean marginal.
Well, Golden State is right.
Like we got a good.
Oh, we got a Golden State. Barry, it's all yours.
Well, but I agree with Golden State. Also, a sleeper is I wouldn't want to play Memphis in the first round. The Grizzlies may not make it. If they do, it'd be at the 8th or 7th seed. And let me tell you, the Grizzlies, when they get Marc Gasol back, are going to be a different team. And they're a very difficult matchup for the Thunder because they got guys that can cover Durant and Westbrook, and Perkins has to play a bunch because of the size of Memphis front line, which means the Thunder offense doesn't work as well. I would stay away from Memphis.
And Jenny, who would the Thunder not want to face in the first round, in your opinion?
Well, I think Golden State is probably at the top of my list, too, just because they really want to push it, and then they can really hurt you in the half court, too, which I think is that's tricky. A team that just really gets hot, and you might not be able to stop them. But it'll be interesting to see how the Clippers fare and how long this Chris Paul injury lingers, what that does to their record. I mean, obviously, they're inside guys, so athletic, such a challenge. I can't imagine they fall quite far enough to be a first-round opponent, but if they fall a little bit, the Thunder falls a little bit, maybe they do kind of end up in the same spot. And if Chris Paul gets healthy, wow, that'd be quite a matchup in the first round for the Thunder.
But let's face it, we all want to see Oklahoma State, Golden State at some point in the playoffs. How much fun would that be? 7 games between those two.
Yeah,
I'd get to go home for a little bit, too. I'd enjoy that very much.
Get away from the frigid balcony that you're on right now, right?
Yes, exactly.
Everybody, hey, thanks so much for your time today. Much appreciated. Today's Thunder Thursday Hangout brought to you by our friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. We were joined by Jenny Carlson, Anthony Slater, and Barry Trammell. We will have this video in its entirety posted on NewsOK.com later this afternoon. A big thanks to you for those of you who contributed at NewsOK.com/live. To Eric Horn, our online producer, to Todd Frazier and Paige Dillard, and perhaps a cast of 1,000 behind the curtain, I don't know. Anyway, that'll do it for the Thunder Thursday Hangout brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet. I'm Dave Morris. Again, the Thunder tonight in Denver against the Nuggets, 9:30 p.m. on TNT.